What's up, everybody? Welcome to my first top 10 list. Hope you're excited. Yeah, top 10 lists are something that I've been looking to kind of get up and running. I have some different ideas that I want to do, like some commander style stuff, but one of the first things I wanted to do was my top 10 Magic experiences. Now, these are not my top 10 accomplishments. This is basically just stuff that I found interesting over the course of me playing Magic. And if you've played any sort of Magic, you'll kind of be able to relate to some of these stories. So I just thought it would be a fun way for you to get to know me more as a Magic player versus just the person who plays Commander and makes a lot of mistakes sometimes. So yeah, it's a good way for you to know more about me, especially if you're a new subscriber. So yeah, I kind of wanted to start off with this. And if you get to the end, or if at any point during the this I guess top 10 list that you have a Magic story you want to tell or something that kind of relates to that, hop in the comments, let me know. If you're a new subscriber, I pretty much reply to every single comment, and I do reply to every single comment. So the comment section is a really good way for me to get to know more about you as a Magic player, and I always recognize your icon. So if you don't comment, just start commenting frequently, and I'll start to recognize your icon and your username. But yeah, if you have any stories, hop in the comments, let me know, because I'm not the only one that reads the comments too. So if you got a cool story there, I'm sure there's other people out there that want to read it. But before we jump into the list, give a shout out to MTGOtraders.com. They're the sponsor on my channel. They have an awesome MTGO Traders website if you need any Magic Online cards. And if you don't know, MTGO Traders is making their own official YouTube page where they're putting out gameplay videos. And I am making videos for them too. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you can get notifications on when my videos go live. I'm getting out around 10 to 12 videos a month. A nice little mix of Commander and Modern. So if you want more videos, and I do this in addition to my normal channel stuff here at Channel Jolt. So basically, if you want just more bonus videos, make sure you subscribe to get notifications on when those get live. And Terran, he's doing standard and limited, so check out some of his videos too. So pretty good. But yeah, let's jump into the list. I don't have these numbered. I basically just go on slide by slide, but there's 10 of them. But yes, so my first standard round win. When I got into Magic during the Return to Ravnica block, and one of the common things I saw online about it, like one of the good things to do as far as getting into Magic, was draft a lot. And so I drafted a lot, and for some reason I just gravitated towards the Golgari clan. I just really thought it was cool that you could use the scavenge ability. You could use the graveyard to your advantage in playing the game. And so if you watch my channel, I play a lot of aristocrats and I love reanimator stuff. So it's definitely my graveyard spark was with the Golgari and Ravnica. So that's always been cool to me. But basically, so I drafted enough to where I kind of had this, like, basically back then it was just would have been a green black $30 value deck with the scavenge being the theme. I didn't have I had Lotlet Troll in there, but I only had one of them because I drafted one of them, and the other creatures I bought, like, I think I spent like $15 buying the cards online to kind of build this $30 just standard deck. And so it took me a lot of nerve because I played a lot of Magic Online, but I'd never gone to a paper store to play paper Magic. And so I looked up the closest gaming store, and it was about 10 minutes away, and I went to my first Friday Night Magic with my green black scavenge deck, and I went 0-3, so that was a pretty rough night. And then that next Friday night, I was like, okay, I like this. This is a pretty cool card store. There's the same core group of like 10 to 15 players. Like, this will be cool to make this my own little Magic home. So I went back that next Friday. I went 0-3 again. I'm down in the dumps. And you know what? I'm like, I'm not going to let that get me down. So I go that next Friday and I get my first standard round win. Like, I'm so pumped. Like, I win my first standard round. And this is one of those, like, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a long rectangular card store that's like at the end of a shopping strip. So it's basically just, it's almost like a, kind of like the shape of a, like a mobile home, kind of like that, just long and rectangular, and it would comfortably seat about 16 players. So when you had like 10 or 15 players there, it was pretty tight quarters, close quarters. And so after I got my first round win, I was, you're just doing that little shuffle, standing around the card store, and the guy that I beat walks up to his buddy, and his buddy goes, "How'd you do?" And he goes, "I told him I lost," or he said he lost, and he goes, "Who'd you lose to?" And I'm like standing like 5 feet away, and he points at me. He goes, "You lost to that guy? He sucks." And so I just remember thinking, like, all right, dude, what do you? I'm new to Magic. What do you want me to do, man? Like, I'm pumped. I got my first round win, and you're like, "Oh, he sucks. You lost to him." And so it's just one of those times in Magic where, like, I'm telling this story to basically, if you see a new player at Friday Night Magic, walk up to them, talk to them, offer some deck advice. You know, like if they have a $30 budget deck, don't say like, well, you need to buy Mardu vehicles to be competitive. Like, just work with what they've got. Like, you can obviously tell maybe they want to get into the game of Magic, but they don't know if they want to take that next leap, and they're just playing with this budget deck. Offer some deck suggestions. You know, offer to look through their deck, offer some lines of play, or just give them some advice. So it's always nice. You know, like I was that new player once. If you see that new player, you know, just offer some advice because everyone has to start somewhere. But all right, on to the next one. Always play around Mana Leak. I remember basically this is just everyone has a yep, didn't play around Mana Leak story. So I was playing online Commander, and the buddy, not the buddy, but the person I was playing against, we had a really quick pace of play. Like we were just going really quick, making land drops, getting stuff down, and just passing the turn very quickly. And so you can both tell we were both just down to business. Like, all right, cool. You know, there's no chit chat, nothing like that. Not that there's anything wrong with chit chat, but I get to the spots where I'm finally going to cast my commander, and basically I haven't made the land drop for the turn. I cast my commander, and I have 2 mana up after I cast my commander. And the land I had in my hand was just like a basic forest or something like that. Like it wasn't a shock land or anything like that I was hesitant to get down. It was just I was just purely lazy, and I was like, oh, you know, I'll get the land drop after I cast my commander. And my opponent had 2 mana up, which is like you should have known something was up. But like all they had was 2 mana up, and it was like blue and something else. And I remember thinking as I was casting my commander, I should make the land drop. I should play around Mana Leak. And I was like, nah, he doesn't have Mana Leak. And so I cast my commander, and they tapped their 2 blue mana. I'm like, ah, crap. And then I see Mana Leak go on the screen, and I'm like, ah. Dang it. And so I don't have enough mana to pay for Mana Leak, and so my commander gets countered. Then, I'm telling you, the land drop you play after failing to pay for a Mana Leak is one of the heaviest land drops you can make in the game of Magic. I mean, I just remember just sitting there, and there was like a 3-second pause. I'm playing online. There's a 3-second pause where I'm just like, so I click on my land, it lands on the battlefield, and I know my opponent was sitting there, wherever he or she was in the world, behind their computer with a smirk on their face like, didn't make your land drop, didn't play around Mana Leak, buddy. And so, yeah, basically just always learn from your mistakes. So, and like I've always remembered the first time I failed to play around a Mana Leak. So, just always good Magic, always play around Mana Leak. On to the next one. It's my Theros pre-release. So, you know, I enjoy going to pre-releases. They're a lot of fun. It's a good time for maybe you don't play a lot of tournament Magic, but you can play with the tournament players, and it's just a fun time. Everyone's happy to open up everyone's happy to be opening up new cards and stuff like that, and you just kind of get some Magic players that come out of the woodwork sometimes for this. So I think it's my second round opponent, and we find our pairings, and I sit down, and he doesn't have a playmat, and he doesn't have card sleeves. And not that there's anything wrong with that. You know, if you're a brand new player, you don't have to have playmats. You don't have to have card sleeves. But usually a player will have one of the either. They'll either have a playmat or they'll have card sleeves. They don't just have no. But you know, you'll run into those players that don't have them. They just don't value. You know, usually they're limited players and they don't value their limited cards that much. Especially if it's just if it's a deck that they're just not that proud of. They're just like, okay, whatever, we'll just leave it up. And so he sits down, but he doesn't have any dice and he doesn't have any paper to write anything on. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I wonder how he's going to keep life total. So I confirm his name, make sure we saw the pairings correctly, and I tell him my name. Or no, I go blah blah blah. Let's just call him Richard. And he's like, yep. And he goes, what's your name? And I tell him Jolt. And then he gets his permanent marker, and he writes on his forearm, he writes Jolt, and he writes 20, and then he writes the first letter of his name, and he writes 20. So I'm like, dude, like as soon as I see him writing on his arm, I go, whoa, man, I've got some paper if you want to borrow something. He goes, no, I'm all right. And I'm just like, and it was just, he said it in a way like, nah, man, I don't need paper. I've got my arm. I'm like, okay. And so the game progresses, and I know it was during the Theros pre-release. I don't know which set it was, but somehow it had +1 counters. And so, like, I have my little bag of die, and he goes to put a +1 counter on one of his cards, and I go, hey, man, you need a die? And I offer it, and he goes, no, it's good. And he goes, no, I'm good. And he grabs his permanent marker, and he writes +1/+1 on his card, and I'm just, like, taken aback at this point. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? I've got dice that I'm not using. You can put that on the card instead of writing on it. He goes, no, it's good. I'm good. And he just writes +1/+1 on the card. And so I'm just like, all right, dude, you do you, man. And of course, I lost to him. So that was just like the salt in the wound. Not that, you never want to lose in Magic, but usually at a pre-release you're okay, but you definitely don't want to lose to the dude that's writing on his arm and writing on his card. So that was a really hard loss for me. But I rallied. I had fun that day, but it just always stuck out to me. Like every once in a while I'll just have this flashback of this guy writing my name on his arm with a permanent marker. I'm like, don't do that, man. On to the next one, another pre-release story. The show must go on. This is an M15 pre-release. So I built like I remember this deck because I remember Stab Wound was in M15, and I love Stab Wound from Return to Ravnica. I love playing with it, and I love taxing effects in Magic. That's one of the reasons why I love Aristocrats. And so I opened up like 3 or 4 copies of Stab Wound in my, I think it was 2 copies of Stab Wound in my pool. I think it had been upgraded to a rare, uncommon, and so I had 2 of them, and then I had like basically I had some like really nice demon that would draw you cards, and so I ended up building like this black white control style deck, and it was like, I'm not a limited player, but I was proud of that deck. I'm like, hey, this is solid right here, man. We've got 2 or 3 copies of removal, and this is like the best. Like, I'll go to pre-releases and I'll get home and I was like, yeah, I probably could have done this. Yep, that would have been a better deck. But this black white deck, I was proud of it. It was fun, and I had Stab Wound, so I love playing with Stab Wound. So I get paired against one of my opponents, and he has Yisin the Wandering Bard. So if Yisin the Wandering Bard, he's a bard, he plays music. So he plays for a show, and then Stab Wound gives target creature -2/-2, and then they lose 2 life. The creature's controller loses 2 life at the beginning of their turn each turn. And so basically, I stab like I'm kind of just in play mode. So I just go to Stab Wound on Eastern on the Bard. Like I say that to my opponent, pointing at it, and he's like. And then he just starts laughing. And then I'm like, what, man? And he goes, well, first of all, he's a bard, and then you're stabbing him. And then, like, he's a 2/3, so he's going to stay a 0/1. And so it was like, he just started laughing, and basically, like, me and him just made up this story about how Yisin the Wandering Bard was just like, he has this, like, bleeding wound on the stage, but he's like, the show must go on. So he's, like, strumming on his little harp for his insect, whatever, in the background. And we just got to laughing, and it was just, like, one of those times where you sit there and you actually, like, imagine, what are you doing with the Magic cards? Like, we just stabbed Yisin, and we just had this story about all the other creatures on his. We're like, Yisin, dude, you need to chill out, sit down, man. You need to get that looked at. That's a pretty gnarly little stab wound. He's like, no, man, the show must go on. So it's just one of those beautiful times in Magic where you stop and think about what are we actually doing with the cards. And stabbing Yisin was definitely the highlight of my pre-release. So, and it's fun to play with players like that. So always enjoyed that. On to the next one is Polar Kraken. So when I got into Magic, one of the things that I would do is I got in during Mirage, and like, I didn't know how to play Magic back then. I didn't know, like, it was just popular and people bought the cards, so I would spend my allowance and buy the cards. And so at this point, I would buy about 1 Magic pack a week. And I went to the card store and they had a pack of Ice Age. And I was like, well, I'll buy one of those. I'm like a Magic pack connoisseur. Like, I've got my $4 in hand. What Magic packs do you have, good sir? Even though I don't even know how to play the game. And I remember, my mom, I mean, not but my mom had driven me there because I wasn't of age to drive. And so I remember I got back in the Suburban and I was in the back seat and I was opening up my my Magic pack, and I got to Polar Kraken and I just looked at it and it was like an 11/11, and it's like eating an iceberg with those polar bears on it, and it cost 11 mana, and it had a cumulative upkeep of Sacrifice a Land, but I didn't know what cumulative upkeep meant. I just knew that, like, if I got this Polar Kraken out, I would win the game. And so I don't know, I've just always loved Polar Kraken as the first little, like, Timmy rare that I opened up, where I was just like, I need this, like, I just need to build a deck around it. It was so cool. And I don't know, it's just so cool to have this innocent magic. And, obviously now I look at the card and I'm like, oh man, cumulative upkeep, sack a land, it's 11/11 trample, it's going to die real quick to Swords to Plowshare or something like that. But back then, when I didn't know anything about Magic, I opened it up and I was just like, oh, this is awesome. I'm unstoppable now that I have this Polar Kraken. So that was my first little rare that I ever opened that was really cool to me. On to the next one was a Friday Night Magic experience. So I'm fortunate enough to be close enough to a local gaming store that has Friday Night Magic Modern. We usually get around 15 to 20 players, and so I'm really thankful for that. And so there's one night, I normally don't get to go play Modern at Friday Night Magic, but this one weekend where I had the time to do it, and I was really excited to go. And so it's the first round, and this is not the opponent that I'm playing against. Like, I'm playing against, basically the way I'm trying to tell the story is, the match to our right, the tournament starts, and then the guy to my right just raises his hand and goes, Judge, My opponent cast Brainstorm, and it's during a modern event. If you don't know, Brainstorm's not legal in modern, but oh my gosh, I would love it if it was. And it was just so funny because like he called the judge, like my opponent cast Brainstorm, and you could see everybody at the table just like they like closed their eyes, and for just a split second they imagined what it would be like. Either they just imagined what it would be like to have Brainstorm be legal and modern. Either they were hating it or they were just like, oh my gosh, yes. And I was sitting there just daydreaming about just, oh, Brainstorm, man. I know you can play it in Legacy, but it was just like that time and moment where everybody at the table was just like, for better or for worse, we're just thinking about Brainstorm being in Modern. It was just a really fun Magic moment for me. Okay, on to the next one is you cannot Ghost Quarter your own land to ban a fix. You can Ghost Quarter one of your own lands, but not Ghost Quarter itself. So I'm in the tournament practice room. I'm kind of like I'm like getting the ropes on Modern now. Like when I got into Modern, I just played it for like months and months and months on end just to kind of learn the format. And I was playing this one match, and I think I had Spell Pierce in my hand. And the way I was thinking was I could Ghost Quarter my own Ghost Quarter, search up a basic, and then cast something for Spell Pierce to stop the spell, and I think it would have been the game-winning spell. And so I activate Ghost, and I'm playing online too. This is not at the store. So I'm playing online, activate Ghost Quarter, targeting my own Ghost Quarter, and if you're not aware, basically you just wasteland yourself. You just destroy your own land. You go down in value. It's one of those rare times in Magic where you think you're doing something, but it goes horribly wrong, and you just go negative in value. And so I was just sitting there. I'm just sitting there in front of my keyboard, just like, dang it. I made a big mistake right there. Shouldn't have done that. And then my opponent in the chat, he wasn't mean or anything. He just puts a question mark. Like, that question mark spoke so much. It was just kind of like him putting his hand on my shoulder like, what's going on, man? Are you okay? You just made a really bad Magic mistake. I hope you know that. And it was just so humorous to me to sit there and just this question mark spoke so many words where I was just, and I don't even think I responded, but it was just like, yes, I made a mistake. We don't have to acknowledge it. But it was just like him reaching out to me and like, hey, man, we're in the tournament practice room. Take a breather. You did something bad, but it's just always stuck out to me. So yes, you can't Ghost Quarter your own land. It will not work as you think. Alright, on to the next one. Keep your calm, good draw, bro. So one of the things I don't enjoy about Magic sometimes, and you don't encounter this a lot, but sometimes you'll come across these players who, if they lose, it's the game's fault, or it's your fault for drawing like cards that you needed or getting lucky. It's never their fault that they lost the game. And so this is at a Modern States event through Star City Games, and I'm doing good. Like I brought a homebrew deck, and I'm like 4-0, so I'm like pumped to be 4-0. And so we go into the 5th round, and I get paired against this Obzon player. And usually, you know what I'm talking about when I say Obzon or Jund player, where it's never their fault. And so I get paired against Obzon, and I'm okay. And so I put my deck down, and we shuffle up, we play, and we have a pretty heated game one. I mean, not verbally, but like we trade some magic spells. We traded a lot of resources, and I ended up top decking the exact card that I need. I'm playing combo. I'm playing Mindcrank, and so I draw the exact combo piece that I need, and I combo off, and I win the game. And so he's pretty salty about it, and so he's like picking his cards up, and he goes, "Good draw." And like I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I had 2 rounds previously that went to time, and like. And so I'm just like Magic tired at this point. So he goes, good draw. And I know what good draw means. Good draw means you got lucky. That's just a nice way of saying you got lucky. If it was a good game, he would have said good game. And so when he said good draw, I wasn't really feeling him being salty towards me, so I go, yeah, well, silly me for putting 4 copies of it in my deck. I was bound to draw it sooner or later. And he got so offended that I said that back to him. And I was just, at that point, I was like, all right, man, let's go, dude. You want to trade? Let's trade, man. And so we kind of started mouthing off back and forth to each other. And it was that time in Magic where, like, we weren't going to get in a fight, but we were just having some heated discussions. And the matches to our left and our right were kind of doing that side-eye look like, do we need to call a judge? Are y'all going to be chill? And so, so we kind of traded back and forth, and then basically, like, he rattled my cage. He threw me off my groove. I lost game 2 from poor play, and then we get to game 3, and I think, I can't remember what happened in game 3, but I ended up losing game 3, so he beat me in 3 games, and they made me go 4-1, and part of that was because he rattled my cage. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, if you're going to play any sort of tournament Magic, let's say you just play Commander, but you're looking to get in either Standard or Modern, when you go to these tournaments, most of the time you're going to be playing against somebody who's a pretty chill person. They may not talk a lot, but at the end of the day, they're very understanding and just a good opponent. But every once in a while, you're going to run into, basically, lack of a better word, you're going to run into jerks, and they're going to try and rattle your cage sometimes. And there's a term in poker called tilt, and that's basically it's where your emotions take advantage of like your thought process, and you're not making clear decisions, and you're just rattled. So long story short, you're going to come across the jerks at some point during Tournament Magic. Don't let them rattle your cage. If they say something like that, don't get defensive. Just be like, all right, good game, man, and just let it roll right off you. And don't let it affect your gameplay, because it definitely affected me then. And yeah, basically just keep your calm. Stay calm. On to the next one was the first time that I sold my Magic collection. So, highlighting on my other point, when I was younger, I would buy Magic packs every week. I probably did this to the point to where I got about 300 cards, 300 or 400 cards in my collection, and I bought cards from like 4th grade, 5th grade, all the way up until high school. And when I got into high school, for some reason, I just stopped buying Magic cards. I had never learned the game at this point, and I didn't know how you could play online or anything like that. I just knew I enjoyed buying the cards. I look at the card art. And so I get into high school, I stop buying them, and when I'm getting ready to go to college, I'm going through my closet, and I get ready to sell a bunch of, like, just stuff that I don't need. And I come across my Magic collection. I was like, well, you know what? You never learned Magic. Let's just go and put this on eBay. And so it was like 300 or 400 cards, and then I list the like top 10 or the top like 30 valuable cards, and I ended up selling my collection for I think $15. And I put in the eBay shipping, I put like flat rate $5 shipping. And so, of course, somebody in Alaska bought it. And so shipping ended up being like $12 to ship it up there. And so I'm driving to the post office. I'm selling my childhood Magic collection for basically net profit of $3. And I remember thinking like, just turn around. Just tell them something happened to your collection. But I went through with it. I sold it. And I got into Magic. And I have forever thought about how badly I want my old collection. Like, I've even contacted eBay to be like, hey, can you pull up this old eBay listing so I can at least see some of the more valuable cards that I have? Because so badly I want to go back and look at my collection and see what kind of decks I could have built, what kind of valuable cards. I don't think I had that many valuable cards in my collection, but it's just more just like, I wish I could go back with the Magic brain that I have now and see what kind of stuff I would have built and different stuff like that. So basically, if you're into Magic and you have a collection, don't sell it. Hold on to it. If you need to sell it for monetary reasons, go for it. But for the main part, hold on to your collection. It's definitely, and especially if you're getting out of Magic, just hold on to it. It's going to be something cool for you to look in later on down the road. Especially in my case, whenever I sold it without knowing what was in there. So I would give I'd give $100 bill right now to have my old collection. I know the value of it's probably around $15 because it's all just junk rares, but I wish I had it. So don't sell your collection if you can help it. On to the last one. It's the weekend I got into Magic Online. And basically, this is kind of a shout out, kind of why I started my channel, because I play so much Magic Online. There was one weekend where my wife, she had to work Saturday and Sunday. And she normally didn't have to work Saturday and Sunday. And so I remember she was leaving that Saturday morning, and I was going to play some Xbox. But at that point, I think it was either Fallout or Grand Theft Auto or Oblivion or something like that. And I was just tired of playing Xbox. And so I remember sitting there. She just left, and I was sitting on the couch, and I said to myself, I said this out loud, and it's so funny to think about it now. I just said, like, is Magic still a thing? I bet there's a way to play it online, because I thought about my old Magic collection. I thought about, hey, you never learned how to play Magic. And I don't know what made that thought pop into my head, so I went into Google, I typed in Magic the Gathering Online, I found the client, I downloaded it, and it was like $10, and I was like, oh man, that's a lot to spend on Magic. And then I saw that they had free trial, or you could jump into the free trial room, so I jumped in there, and I played Magic. I put my headphones on, and for some reason I listened to Dead Mouse 4x4 equals 12 on loop like all day, and I played Magic all day. They had pre-constructed, like, I don't know which set it was, maybe it might have been like M12 or M13, it might have been, I think it was M13 or M14. But there's these pre-constructed decks. Like, I remember playing this Bloodthirst deck, and it kind of taught me how to play creatures on the second main phase to take advantage of Bloodlust or Bloodthirst. There's another deck that was it had 3 artifacts. It was like a crown, a scepter, and like a chair or something. And if you had all 3, you could make tokens, and you could gain control of creatures, and you could do all this other stuff. So it was kind of like my first little adventure into like a combo deck or something like that. And I just played Magic all day, and I loved it. And so she got back from work that night, and the next Sunday she had to go back to work, and I was kind of just waiting for the door to close, and then I put my headphones back on, And I played Magic again all day that Sunday, and I finally learned the game of Magic. And it's also why I know Magic now. It was just the one weekend I sat on my couch and said, "Is Magic still a thing?" And I downloaded it. So I'm very glad I just had that random shower thought. And that's still to this day, that's my favorite weekend of Magic I ever played. Just because I immersed myself in the game of Magic. Like I was seeing Lano War Elves in my dreams that night. I'm pretty sure I did, and it was just yeah. I was so glad I got into Magic, and definitely a lot of fun, and yeah, it's just been my favorite kind of weekend of Magic I ever got into, and I think that's it as far as my list goes. So, like I said, if you have any other Magic stories you want to tell me, hop in the comments, let me know, and if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.